This is Regenerative Skills, the podcast helping you to learn the skills and solutions to create an abundant and connected future. I'm your host, Oliver Gaucher. New Society Publishers has been a leader in sustainable publishing for over 40 years now. They're an activist, solutions-oriented publisher focused on bringing you tools for a world of change. They've now published over 600 books available both in print and ebooks, as well as an increasing library of audiobook selection as well. They care deeply about both what they publish and how they do business, and so the same thinker and doer approach permeates their in-house work and the books themselves. A certified B Corporation, they print on 100% post-consumer recycled paper, and they are carbon neutral, and they print only in North America, never offshore. And that's just the company themselves. Most importantly, they've got the best selection of books that you need to build your own regenerative, ecological, or community-based projects. You can check out their full list of titles now at newsociety.com. Hey everybody, and welcome back. So since last year, much of my work with climate farmers has been in building the European farmer community and creating connections so that members can learn from each other. Now, I admittedly don't have a lot of prior experience with this particularly, and so I went looking for experienced and successful community builders to mentor me in this process. Now, one of the most helpful and inspiring people that this search put me in touch with is Klarien Klingen, one of the primary organizers of the Dutch agroecological community called Toekomstboeren, which translates to future farmers and works to strengthen the connections and representation of ecological farmers in their country. They've made commendable progress in advancing awareness of their community and hosting events that connect farmers around their country in the process, both of which are things that I aspire to do with the climate farmers community too. Now, in this conversation, Klarien and I explore her own background as a farmer and what has motivated her to unite others around her. We also look into what is behind the growth and the success of Toekomstboeren, as well as the collaborations and the alliances that have strengthened their efforts. I've found that the information and the experience that I've gained with my consultations with Klarien has been quite universal, beyond just the particularities of the farming community. Her observations and her learnings ring true for many of the other community efforts and unification projects that I've observed and been a part of. Community building is a subject that I've long explored on this show, and if any of you are interested in learning more from a variety of other perspectives, I'll link to other episodes on this topic in the show notes for this episode. But for now, I'll hand things over to Klarien. Hey, welcome, Klarien. It's great to be talking to you again. Thanks for making time today.
Hi.
So to get us started, I would love to hear, first of all, about how your growing season is going out in the market garden and how the Dutch community is doing here in the middle of summer.
Yes, thank you for that question. Yeah, the growing season is very interesting because since 2018, we had very dry and hot summers, relatively, for our context. But this year, it was very hot and dry in spring, where it normally is cooler and more rain. And this year, it was very hot and dry. And then in summer, where it's normally warm and nice, now we have rain, a lot of rain. So it's a bit, it really, the season really asks us to adapt, to changing stuff. So also for us on the garden, it's like that. So at this moment, we have many weeds, but on the other hand, in the dry time, we managed to plant many things because we have irrigation. So I think in general, we are actually quite happy this season. And the Dutch community of farmers is, of course, I cannot speak for everyone at the same time, but I think we are very motivated, very enthusiastic, but we also get more clear the struggles. For example, long-term access to land is really like the problem of long-term access to land is more clear when there are more agroecological farmers, and agroecological farmers are already longer working. Like in the beginning, like 10 years ago, when we started our association of Toekomstboeren, it was like a sort of new phenomena, that these new entrant farmers and agroecology in the Netherlands. And it was just, oh, so nice, so interesting, all these new initiatives. But now we are like, hey, we're here. We need some space and we need the land to be there for us, like also in 10 years and 20 years and not just 1 year contracts. It doesn't work for us. So that's one of the things. But we are very resilient and diverse and creative. So yeah, we are there.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And man, there's no more adaptable and resilient population than people who manage landscapes and deal with these types of variables like you talked about all the time. But I'd like to start at the beginning and maybe get an insight on, first of all, your own personal entry into farming, and then how the start of the farmers community of Toekomstboeren started to evolve and be built.
Yeah, so I studied in university, but then I realized after 6 years of university with a MSc degree, I realized that I wasn't going to make something. I wasn't going to produce or create something. I was just going to talk and produce ideas and maybe a PowerPoint as a maximum product, and which I didn't like. And also, I saw so much inequality in the world and so much power problems actually, that I thought it would be better as a European to stay in Europe and try to give a nice example, or to be very close to my opinion, like to combine my actual work, creating something or producing something, combine it really with what I believed in, which was actually basically pesticide free agriculture, um, accessible to all kinds of people. That's, I think, what I wanted to not only talk about but really make and create. So that's why I decided to become a farmer. But after university, this was at that time with the people around me was a very strange idea. Now it's different, but at that time I didn't really know many people who did this. So I started to work on other people's farms to discover if I really liked it. And then some years later, I started an education, which in the Netherlands we have vocational training where you can practically learn to become an organic farmer. Um, so that's how it all started. And then I noticed that I wasn't the only one. This grew over the years, I guess, but there were more and more people like me who had another background, who didn't inherit farms from their parents, but still wanted to be farmers, which is quite interesting phenomenon because many conventional farmers are actually at this moment stopping, or their children don't want to take over their farm, or even some of them, they even go bankrupt. And still, we new entrant people wanted to become farmers. Like, it's really why, and I was one of them, but I was still surprised about the others. So yeah, that's how it started. We wanted to know more about us and see who we were and what our motivations were, but also really to support each other where needed and inspire each other with our very diverse stories of agroecological farming.
That's, I think, a very common motivation that a lot of people have in this sector. I hear it from individuals in our community all the time too, that they want to connect with others, understand what they're doing, share knowledge and resources. And with that as a core motivation, how has the community grown since then? And what are some things that you've learned in that process?
Yeah, so we have grown. So we have an association with members, and I think like we have more than 300 members now in the Netherlands of Toekomstboeren, and I think this number is more or less, yeah. So there were, in the beginning, people didn't really know what they were signing up for. They were interested in our association, but now I was going to say that the growth has been more in sort of awareness and focus of the members and of us as an association. We know more what we're doing now than in the beginning. In the beginning, we were just inspiration. What I was saying before, inspiration was a reason to start the association. But now we noticed that we need to really sort of speak up for us also. And it's not the main goal. The main goal is still to inspire each other. But also we notice that, for example, long-term access to land, but also other issues, that we as agroecological farmers are a bit, not only a bit different than conventional farmers, but also in a way a bit marginalized, or we aren't recognized in the way that we should. This is what we feel. So we've grown, especially in the in knowing our sort of contribution to society in terms of what all the individual farms can contribute to more sustainable agriculture. This we know much better now than 10 years ago. So, and also we know to talk about it more clear than 10 years ago. But also we know as an association how we really need to support our members and on what topics.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. These types of challenges though they are manifested in unique ways in different parts of the world, are very similar to what I've heard ever since I was working with farmers in Guatemala and Ecuador, all the way to here in Europe. But there are some really unique aspects of farming in the Netherlands. Some people have maybe recently seen the protests that happened a couple of years ago based on the regulations around nitrogen and nitrates in the soil. But also, you have by far the highest land value prices in Europe. And that goes back to the access to land things that you were talking about. What are some of the unique challenges besides, or maybe building on the ones that I mentioned, that are constantly being talked about within your group?
Yeah, so I think what's unique in the Netherlands, I think you mentioned it already, is there are many people living in a very small country. So it's on one hand an advantage because we're always close to a city. So in terms of sales, it can be convenient,
Access
even
to
though
market, right?
yes, access to market is relatively, I mean, what we call local. I know that the definition of local or local sales and local market is depends, of course, on the context. So for us in the Netherlands, we want to be actually at bicycle distance from our customers. And I know in other countries it's
That's
really
very
crazy.
Dutch.
But so the luxury specific Dutch context is that we are close to cities where people can, or where we can reasonably ask a fair price for our work. So, and on the other hand, because there are so many people living in this small country, they also want roads and infrastructure and buildings, development project to build, and solar panels. So and nature, like the pressure on the land is really, really enormous. And if we were only, if we had to negotiate and have a dialogue with conventional farmers, I would be hopeful. I would imagine that we would figure it out. If there was agricultural land, just agriculture, and that was it, then we would. I really think we would figure it out. Some conventional farmers, they're afraid of us, maybe, but many of them, they see that what we do makes sense in the end. So if we would have to deal with them to get our lands, it would be one thing. But no, it's not that. We have to deal with solar parks and other parts of society that really drive up the prices. So the prices, they rise not because of agriculture, but because of all these other sectors which really rise the prices. And of course, if you are a farmer family and your children don't want to take over the farm and you're already very big in debts with the bank, of course, if there is this development project stuff or solar panel that want to buy your land for a better price, than some strange hippie with an alternative plan of agroecological farmer. Yeah, it's so this is the reality. So it's really tough to get land on good terms.
Yeah, yeah, that's also happening in a lot of places with various types of investments. Land is increasingly becoming a financial tool as a way to park money in an investment that has a pretty good return over time and definitely traditionally has been very stable. And that makes it very difficult for the types of land use activities that don't drive a high revenue, which increasingly different types of farming are not, and can't then get the space that are needed for the type of production that is also essential for the food system to be resilient, and so many other things. What do you find the hot topics within your community being? What really engages people and gets them passionate to participate in these discussions?
Yeah, so no dig is really something. Everybody wants to hear more about it, and there's this image that if you do no dig, it's like the solution. It's amazing solution for all your problems, and it will be, it's really amazing. So this
Is
is
this for
very
both
nice.
gardening and for grain production, or mostly for one or the other?
Mostly gardening,
Yeah.
but I noticed that um, I think there are many dairy farmers or arable farmers who are also like the ones who are interested in the future, like how to frame this in a nice way. So there are people who desperately sticking to the old times and try to just produce more pigs per hectare, but there are also many people who really enjoy farming, either organic farmers, dairy or arable, or maybe almost organic or open-minded, or there are many of them actually. They're not so conservative, and they're interested in the future. I don't know. And those people, they also, so there I really noticed arable and dairy farmers who are, they watch this movie. We have this movie Onder het Maaiveld, which is basically promo movie on Nordic, or putting cardboard and then a big layer of compost, and it's amazing. And so those people, they now they want also a market garden on their farms because it's cool,
Yeah.
So this is but they don't yet. I mean, on the other hand, there's this also another, but I don't see it in the same way. But regenerative farming as a concept is also people also interested in it, and many arable farmers and some dairy farmers try to do experiments with it. Some are really far and really say, I'm a regenerative farmer, I only do it like that, or people who quit really tilling. But this is really starting and really diverse, and really also not in the Netherlands. We don't know yet what regenerative farming is. So many people are inspired by the States, grass-fed beef movement, regenerative agriculture movement in the States. But in the Netherlands, there are so many differences in many ways, in terms of scale, in terms of land price, in terms of market, access to market, but even climate and clay soils. I don't know, there are so many things. So we are really in the beginning of the regenerative agriculture movement in terms of dairy and arable. And in terms of market gardeners, it's Nordic. That's really, many people do it, and still it's new. So the real, like the 10-year experience that you want to have to really say something like this works or not, we don't have it yet. But many people are really into it. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. That's really good to hear. It sounds like a general spirit of experimentation and trying new things as, people come up to new challenges is a really good spirit to have in any industry. But, it's something that farming is not most well known for. Oftentimes there's a stereotype that people are kind of set in their ways and that they don't want to change. I believe that has more to do with the amount of risk that farming is already under, but the fact that you've got a very active community that is exploring these options is really good to hear.
Can I add one
please.
thing? Another thing that's similar, like the way you summarized it now, the Nordic and market gardening, there's also this very big interest in CSA. So community supported agriculture is also has grown a lot in the Netherlands. So we have around 200 initiatives now which call themselves CSA, and this was it's been like in 5 years or something, growing from like almost zero to this number. So it's really many people are interested in. So consumers are interested in it, and producers. Just like Nordic, it's really something what you were saying, like we as new entrant farmers, we are able to think out of the box, and the idea that there is nobody between producer and consumer, that there's really direct agreement on price and producing conditions. This is really also very appealing to many people. And even as I was describing before, the existing dairy or arable farmers who are already there, even they are very interested also in CSA way of thinking. But in general, in the Netherlands, the community supported agriculture, the way it looks in the Netherlands in general is vegetables, because with dairy and larger scale arable, it's not yet very big, but with vegetables, there are like 200 initiatives in the Netherlands now.
Wow.
CSA. So that's also very cool. Yeah.
That is really cool. It sounds like there's a general spirit of entrepreneurship that is being expressed here. And I don't know how the regulatory climate is in the Netherlands. I've heard that it's quite restrictive, and it's one of the more robust kind of legal systems that one has to navigate for farmers around Europe. That's another aspect of unique context between different member nations of the EU that often comes up in the conversations with the climate farmers community. How are your members expressing their either difficulties or support for certain regulations and navigating them in general?
Yeah, I really cannot generalize about this. Sorry about my English. So it's a very, very relevant question that you're posing to me now, and I cannot answer for all the people. And actually, it's also something that we have to really talk about together, because we didn't really formulate our opinion yet as agroecological movement on CAP, for example, CAP money, CAP regulation.
The common agricultural policy, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so the Common Agriculture Policy has several pillars, and one of the pillars is direct payment. And there are many arguments we can imagine which are against the whole notion, the whole concept of direct payment, like supporting a farmer just because he's a farmer. And of course, it has a history after Second World War and stuff. It makes sense historically. It makes sense, and we also, of course, we understand that people who have farms where the part of the income is based on common agriculture policy money, it makes sense that they want to keep it. We understand this on a personal farm level. We understand that they want to conserve their money or right to this money. On the other hand, we are not so fan of the idea of direct payment of conventional farming because it's European citizens' tax money going to, let's say, poisonous agriculture, if I put it that way. So we aren't really. We didn't organize any protest against this in this way. On the other hand, we do hear many stories all the time of agroecological farmers, members of Toekomstboeren, and members of other agroecological organizations in the Netherlands who really, they really hit the wall, so to say. They really cannot move forward with their innovative, as you were saying, entrepreneurial, innovative, creative way of farming because of regulation. So in the CAP money registration sort of system, like because all the farmers have right to direct payment, they have to register. They have to register all kind of things, like a lot of information. They have to register. These are conditions to get the money. Makes sense. If you want to get make use of this money, you have to show that you are a good farmer, let's put it that way. But what if you don't want this money? You still have to comply. Yeah, so this is problematic not only for us small-scale agroecological farmers, because we have to comply to this registration system, which is sometimes really problematic for us, but also for innovation in general. Let's say an existing farmer who wants to put up hedges in his grass field, just one example. But in the box system of the EU subsidy money, there is no hedges, for example. So this is like, it's really stopping innovation. So that's a shame. And also it's weird money. Let's put it that way. It's weird money. It's not money that keeps us stimulates people to innovate in a good way. It's not. I think it's keeping us from positive innovation. So this is
a lot of the critiques that I hear from our community too is that it basically puts its hand on the scale of agriculture and promotes poor practices that otherwise would not be sustainable economically, but are given support just for the fact that they are farms under this program. And the other real regular, I guess, criticism of this is that for the most part, these regulations were created as a response for very large farms. And in order to comply with them, the economies of scale needed to meet the quotas or the regulations that come with any given farm enterprise are really not feasible for people beyond a certain size. That to do this with a few animals and get them, let's say, vaccinated or inspected by a veterinarian represents a massive cost for someone at a smaller enterprise level than for someone doing this at an industrial level. Have you seen that as well?
Yes, it's absolutely true. So the time it costs to fill this registration form, which is a lot of time because we have great diversity, but also there are so many examples. What you're saying about if you want to keep some, for example, if you want to keep some animals outdoors, let's say you have maybe a natural kind of animal husbandry system. But if you, as soon as you milk, you have to have a stable. Even I think if you have cattle already, even if it's for meat, you have to have a stable. Like there's so many rules that are all those rules and regulations. They're all answers to the problems created by conventional farming.
Right.
So also with manure, for example, if I have a garden, even if it's half a hectare, and I put compost, even if it's vegan compost, I still have to comply to the manure regulation, which is a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of restrictions, and also maybe I cannot even put vegan compost on my half hectare because of regulation. But the rules are there because of the pig and poultry people who flood the world with manure, you know. So it's really, I understand that these rules and regulations exist. They are an answer to problems that we didn't create. So that's really a problem. Yeah.
Right, right. Now, I want to go back to something that is a constant point of conversation in our communities as well, and that you've mentioned a few times. There's a difference between conventional or industrial agriculture and agroecology. And your community really represents agroecological interests for the most part. But I'm also wondering where you draw that line and how welcoming you are to people in the conventional ag sphere that you talk about, and if that distinction is really important within the group dynamics that you curate.
Yeah, it really depends on the situation, the context. Like the distinction, I think the distinction in general is not so relevant. We don't want to, I don't know, talk about negative about somebody just because he's or she is conventional. That's not. It's not about that, but it's about the values of agroecology that are important to us. So if those values of agroecology are also important to somebody that considers themselves as conventional, like it's really about the values. The values are farm autonomy. So many conventional farmers also really find this important. So farm autonomy is one thing. So we want to decide how we want to produce. We want to be able to make decisions on production, and also on market. We want to be able to make those decisions is one very important thing. And other things are really related to how we work with society and nature. So the image of a farmer that is really stuck between very small profit margins because there's a lot of investment, a lot of capital in the farm and very little revenue. This image is what we want to get rid of, or that we want to change in an image where we have another ratio between the money flowing in the farm and the money that's for us, for example. So those things. So it's really about resilience, autonomy, and in our work, in what we do, we really build really alliances with consumers and other citizens, rather than with bank and industry. So these are different sort of approaches to create a nice farm. And yeah, in the Netherlands, in Europe, we have this organic certification, which is very clearly stating no chemical fertilizer and no pesticides. That's the certification, which is very clear and which really, in my opinion, really deserves respect because of the meaning of it. The definition of it is it's in European law. European law says what the word organic means. So this is very has been very relevant pioneering work in the past, which we should be grateful for and respectful for. On the other hand, we see, of course, some organic producers who are very capital intensive, large scale monoculture, a lot of tilling, and they clearly chose for the certification just for the money. On the other hand, there are people who don't have the organic certification for many reasons, and who are really into our way of farming and thinking. So it really depends on the situation. And conventional farming is not a negative word for us. It's negative when somebody is proud of buying all the land of his neighbors and proud of growing from 3,000 pigs to 5,000 pigs. Then it's bad, you know, but not in general. Conventional is not wrong in general per se. So is that an answer question?
Yeah, I like that way of articulating it. It's something that I've definitely found, both working directly with farmers and in managing our community, that the lines are really blurred. There are a lot of people that perhaps implement certain practices which would be considered conventional, like you say, tillage or usage of chemical crop protection products, but at the same time are working in other areas to enhance ecological services, to do a lot for their local communities. I very rarely see farmers that are disengaged from the rural communities that they're a part of. And all of those contribute to something that is better. And it's just about, like you said, those value systems that we have in common and finding the overlap in our priorities and the missions that we care to advance. I find that there are usually way more aspects in that area that are in common, regardless of, you know, the actual practices and techniques that we use in our assumptions of what is going to get us to the results that we're talking about. That's where it gets a little more complicated. And so let's switch over to exploring a little bit about what it means to curate, manage, and engage a community like this. Because as you very well know, farming is one of the most diverse sectors of the economy out there. To say someone is a farmer is a very broad and unspecific term and can represent any number of enterprises, practices, goals, and circumstances or contexts. And in an effort to bring together so much diversity within a community, where do you find the commonalities and the things that people really come together on despite these differences?
Yeah, so we are lucky. Maybe it was luck, maybe it was a deliberate choice, that in the name of our association, Toekomstboeren, it means future farmers. So people still today, even though we exist 10 years now, still today people ask, does future farmers, does it mean it's for people who want to be a farmer in their future, or does it mean for farmers who are ready for the future? And then we answer both. So many of our members, they are new entrant farmers. Not so many aren't farmers yet. Most of them are already farmer in a way, but many of them are new entrant farmers, but not all of them. There are also people who farm in an agroecological way. Either they inherited farms from their parents and really radically changed it into a very sustainable farm, or people are already organic or biodynamic and are interested in our community because they want to connect with new entrant farmers because they like us, because we think out of the box. They like to be in dialogue with people from the city maybe who really have radical new ideas. For us it's already in the name, so that helps. And agroecology is a very clear other thing, even though it's still in the process of sort of landing in the Netherlands, this concept, but it's we can always refer to the global movement, which is very strong in Latin America. But there's a worldwide organization, La Via Campesina, which is representing the agroecological farmers or the peasants worldwide, which has many members in many countries. And Toekomstboeren is the representative of the Netherlands in La Via Campesina. So people who are interested and people who want to know more about the position of Toekomstboeren, maybe they easily find on our website, they find the link, so we represent in a sort of global peasant world, the peasant movement, defending peasant rights. The United Nations had a peasant rights declaration last year or 2 years ago. So those things really set the scene. So people who are wondering what we do or where we stand, they can always easily find this in that international context. So it's more about sharing the values than who you are. So if you like our values, you are very welcome. That's, I think, how we define our members and community. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've learned with and from you that has been very effective in uniting the group that we have with climate farmers as well, is by putting out a clear message of what it is we represent and what it is that as a group we would like to advance. For us, it's mutual learning and promotion of peer-to-peer knowledge exchange in our groups, and helping others to find the support and the resources they need to accomplish their goals on their farms, but also in the larger conversation in policy levels and economics. And by stating something clear like that, it gives us something that we can rally behind and that we can promote together, however that might look different between the members themselves.
Yeah, nice. I really thank you for that feedback. I like to hear it because this was something that we learned over the past 10 years. So in the beginning, we thought we just really enthusiastic, invite many people to join just for the sake of it. But we learned to really be clear on our mission. That's basically what you're saying, to be clear on your mission and vision. And if you invite people with that, based on vision and mission, then they understand what they step into. They understand, and then it's not maybe quantity, even though we noticed that there's actually more people coming, but it's quality also. Like, people know what they step into, and you can work stronger together if you know that you work on a similar mission and vision and purpose. So this really, this was really something that we had to learn. In the beginning, we thought, we need just more people, but it was really nice. We really discovered this, that we don't have to sort of um, dilute our message. We don't need to dilute our message to be friends with anyone. We can just be clear on our message, and that's actually people actually like it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
thank
that
you for
makes
that.
a lot of sense. When you try to please everybody, you just end up pleasing no one.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you mentioned too that you have a collaboration with Via Campesina, the international nonprofit organization that helps to promote peasant rights and lives on rural areas and farms around the world. Have you made any other key collaborations like that? And what has been the process or the advantages of connecting in with these other networks?
Yeah. So in the beginning, 10 years ago, we got many emails from many organizations that we didn't know whether we could collaborate or not, and why are they approaching us. Maybe one example is the state forest company. Like in the beginning you think, oh, they want to talk to us, but then later, like, why? Like, this has been a really a learning process. So now we are very close, like partners, very close friends. I don't know if this is a word to say for organizations, but this is how it feels. With the CSA network, with the Biodynamic Farmers and Citizens Association, even with Bio Vegan network, even though, for example, biodynamic, they really also have cattle, like animals. So it's very interesting. But the commonality with bio vegan is that we really want to that we really think that ideals and a strong mission and vision is valuable for societal change. So this we really appreciate in the bio vegan movement. Bio vegan, CSA, biodynamic, permaculture. Oh yeah, and organic market gardeners. This is also an association of people who do have organic certification, and they are small scale organic certified farmers, and they have their specific struggles and fights. So those are the very like really very close partners, which together we form also a federation where we really have more or less formalized structure now to really work together. And next to that, we have many other organizations that we are acquainted with and that we work together when relevant. But one example maybe is nice also to know that every year in the Netherlands there's a organic fair, biobeurs, organic fair, I think is the English name. A place where organic everything related to organic agriculture is showed, sort of. And there we every year we have a workshop on. It's very nice. It's farmer meets farmer workshop. So the idea is, because on this organic farming fair there are many existing organic farmers, for example, dairy or arable, who exist for many generations, and they like to have maybe a young or new person, gardener or CSA or something initiative. On the other hand, many of our colleagues, they are looking for land. So we make this matchmaking thing between an existing farmer and a person looking for land, and yeah, it's very fun. So yeah, this is one other example where we have a tradition of partnership, which is a yearly thing. So yeah, stuff
Oh,
like
I
that.
love that. Now, one of the other things around this effort to connect people in person that I have learned a ton of from you is how to get past some of the biggest challenges of bringing farmers together to meet face to face, right? Because as we all know, especially me now that I'm getting settled into my own farm, it can be very difficult to leave the land when there are so many responsibilities that need to be taken care of on a daily basis. But there's no substitute online or elsewhere for face-to-face interaction and the relationships and the friendships that can come from that. And you've given me a lot of insights and have some great knowledge and experience from overcoming this hurdle and bringing people together. Can you give me an outline of some of the things that have been most effective in creating events that farmers can attend?
Yeah, thanks for the compliment. I'm happy to hear that it was useful to talk about these kind of things. Yeah, so first, very briefly on the challenges. So if you organize something on Sunday, people who want Sunday as a resting day to stay with their families, they cannot come. If you organize something on Saturdays, people who stand on markets on Saturdays cannot come. If you organize something on weekdays, people who have another job maybe cannot come. So there's always, you always exclude people. So one trick is to change this a little bit, to exclude not always the same people. dairy farmers, they have to milk, so can only do after 10 in the morning and until 4, for example. This I'm talking now from a Dutch perspective, where people only need to drive 1 or 2 hours to our
Right.
thing. So one trick is to diverse the people you exclude. We have the tendency to mostly organize stuff in winter because many of our members are gardeners, but some are tree nursery people and they feel excluded if we organize something in winter because their rest season is summer and their business season is winter. So already there's a problem. Another thing is to combine a weekday, and if you have a 2-day conference, for example, combine a weekday and a weekend day, Friday and Saturday, then you exclude two, and then make it very important, I think, for all kind of events with this purpose, where, as you were saying, there's content and there's social dual purpose to it, is to really plan unorganized time. So if you have lunch, because the trap if you are new in organizing such events is that you have so many ideas on speakers and topics and workshops and things, and then the day is completely packed with stuff. But my really strong advice, if you have, for example, the lunch, make it 2 hours. If you have the welcoming moment subscription entrance moments thing with coffee, make it an hour. Like, people want to talk to each other in an informal way, on like semi-organized. So they think they come there to subscribe to the event and have a coffee, but actually they want to talk to each other. And then they think they want to have lunch, but they like to talk to each other. So this is really very important. Don't pack the program. What else? Yeah, beer and food, of course, is always important. To combine content with non-content, I think that's the basic most important thing, to make it useful and cozy at the same time. So don't choose there. I mean, you choose, but for example, 2 hours of content, 2 hours of coziness. I'm just saying, just one example, but to make a balance there is really important. Yeah.
Well, that goes along with one of the most surprising learnings that I got from when I was involved with organizing the first Climate Farmers Conference 2 years ago. And we asked a bunch of farmers, like, well, what is your favorite part about any of the conferences or gatherings that you've been to? And so many of them said, going to the bar after the conference. They really do crave that social time. I mean, it's very hard to be connected with the larger community when you're stuck on a farm. And that's often the relationship that ends up lasting much longer, that is nurtured beyond the event itself.
Having said that, if you would just if you would try to bring people together with nothing organized, just beer, it's also not working. Like, it is you who put the effort and the sweat in thinking on the program of content. Because of that, they appreciated the beer.
Yes.
It's really important.
Yeah. And that's exactly how we kind of went to planning the event. It's like, okay, how can we leave enough space for all of the social interactions that people really value overall, but keep enough structure in there so that it has an agenda, there's some real outcomes, and there's enough of a pull to bring people there beyond just hanging out with some friends.
Yeah, because that's the thing. To pull people to something, there should be some spectacular content.
Yeah. And, we're always figuring that out. One of the things that we're increasingly trying is decentralizing the events that we are creating and letting people to propose their own events, visits on their farms, collaborate with other organizations like your own, like Agricultura Regenerativa Ibérica here in Spain, that are constantly hosting events and workshops. And we have kind of a central calendar where anybody can post these. We go through a little screening, making sure that they're relevant for our community. But then you're always informed by what's going on as near as possible to you, with as much preparation time as is needed to be able to organize, to be able to leave the farm. And, we're in the early stages of doing that, but we're getting a lot of response already. And I'm actually just in the process of finalizing the details for a community gathering and some farm visits in Tuscany in Italy to activate the community we have there as well. And yeah, I mean, it just comes back to this innate human need to be a part of something larger than just our own efforts, and also share and learn from others who are on a similar journey, to the mutual benefit of everyone. And that really is what we're continuously being reinforced and seeing, is the value in communities like that. Well, look, we're starting to get to the end of their time, but I would love to hear from your advice and the experience in growing this community to where it's at, how you would advise someone who is starting or looking to start a community in their own area around agriculture, around perhaps food security or some sort of growers cooperative. What are some of the key aspects that they need to keep in mind in order to hopefully have long-term success with this?
Yeah, so I think, of course, I mean, no, of course, no. For me, it seems to be logically that first you investigate what people want, but you can spend a year on this and a PhD on it, or call two people. I mean, of course, there are many ways to do it, but first figure out what are the needs. On the other hand, you can also be very motivated with a small group of people to really start something, and then people will follow. Yeah, our challenge was to the balance between work structurized, to have an organization that functions in terms of just membership administration and money, stuff like that, versus the idealism and enthusiasm about content. That's a really tough thing, because I'm personally a very impatient person, and I get immediately sort of panicked or bored, or I really want to run away if we have meetings on treasureship and money, like this kind of stuff. I just want to talk about farming, but you have to have the other stuff organized too. So this is really a challenge. If you, on one hand, I would recommend to only work with people who are farmers themselves, because we can represent us very the best way. It's really not working if somebody else is representing me. On the other hand, farmers are busy, so you cannot ask them to be treasurer, so it's really tricky. So this was a challenge. I'm trying to, because you asked me for advice, and I'm sharing a challenge, but this was really, really tough. Or maybe it still is tough, even though. So the way we got out of this sort of difficulty was what I was mentioning before, that we discovered that the content, the stuff that we really stand for, that is really giving energy and helping us to really go for it. So I think the stuff that I'm describing now about our experience in organization, it will also work if you want to start somewhere, something new. It's also like that. So of course, it's not nice if you're one person and you write a vision and you stick to it alone. That's not nice. So, but a vision is important, but of course, it's something that evolves over time. But don't be afraid to really stick to your principles. I think maybe that's the most important thing. Don't be afraid to stick to your principles. And the principles ideally should be formed by a group. And ideally, in my personal and in our Toekomstboeren opinion, there should always be feedback from the members. So we really want a representative organization. So there cannot be one board deciding. So the members can have a say in maybe a board proposes something, and then members, they can vote. This is a structure that we really like. We want to be representative, and this takes time. So if you want to ask other people their opinion, it always takes time and effort and trouble and struggle. But I think it's better because if what you are doing is supported and carried by a larger group of people, and in the beginning maybe they seem diverse. In the beginning, maybe you don't know what brings them together, and this should become, or should be, the principles, the common set of values. What are we working for? And we can have different religions, we can have different ethnic background, we even can have different languages. As long as we know what we're working on, what we want to go for, what are our common principles, we will share energy and help each other, I think. Yeah.
I love that. That's wonderful advice. And it's definitely something that I'm going to add to the very broad body of work that you have already given me and shared and guided this process in the creation of the community up until now. I mean, beyond everything that I've learned with this conversation, I just want people listening to understand how much value and support I've received from you in my work up until this point, and the great advice and experience that I've been able to draw from this work that you and your colleagues have done to build the community there in the Netherlands. And I really want to thank you for it. It's been so helpful for me. And I really look forward to continuing to work together, figuring out how we can bring our communities together for the benefit of all, and hopefully offer some increased value to farmers as they are looking to exchange knowledge and grow in their businesses and connect with one another like all of us need. So again, thank you for that. And thank you for your time today.
Nice, Oliver. I'm touched by your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to my experiences and sharing all the smart questions. I really think we, as regenerative farming and agroecological movement, I think we really need each other, because it's not so evident for the rest of the world what we're doing. So I really think we need each other, and we'll make minor steps in that. So thanks, Oliver. Thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks once again to Klarien. I'll be posting all of the links that you can get in touch with her and her community in the show notes under this episode on the website at regenerativeskills.com. Now, before we wrap this up, just remember that these episodes are only the beginning of the learning resources, design and coaching services, in-person courses, and interactive community that are available through Regenerative Skills. The Discord server is our free community where you can connect with other like-minded listeners, exchange ideas, stories, tips, and resources, as well as interact with me directly and quite a few former guests from this show. Our Instagram account at regen_skills is the best place to see the projects that me and the team are working on, both for clients and collaborators, as well as on our own properties. I'll also be announcing the certification courses, workshops, and gatherings that we've got coming up later this year. If you're interested in getting dedicated support for your own project, you can now schedule a free planning session with one of our team members through the request form on our website. You can also find all the links, show notes, and past resources there at regenerativeskills.com. We truly believe that no matter your experience, your knowledge, abilities, resources, or background, you can be a powerful force for regeneration on this planet, and we're here to help you find your path. So as always, remember to keep taking those little steps every day towards a regenerative future, and I'll be right by your side along the way.